Hi, my name's Kathy Skipper and I'm a menopause midwife. Welcome to my channel, The Alchemy of Menopause. In this video, I'm going to lead you through a series of steps that constitute an example of the heroine's journey. So the reason why I'm doing this is because I think, in my experience of working with hundreds of women going through menopause, is that it really is when we commit to the internal processes of menopause and that inner journey, what we're really looking at is this continuum of our life. And what is the heroine's journey? What is our journey as a heroine, as a woman? And so, what I'm going to share with you, you might want to get a pen and paper and note them down so you can actually look at what periods of your life did you go through these different stages. And this is based, what I'm going to be sharing with you is my version, but it's based on the work of Maureen Murdoch, who wrote a book called The Heroine's Journey and did a lot of work on the heroine's journey. I think she worked with Campbell, who was working on the hero's journey or offering work on the hero's journey, and she realized that there was no heroine's journey and it wasn't the same. And that's where this work came from. So the hero's journey, we all know. He sort of goes off into this challenging life, which is rather linear, and he comes across a big challenge or a series of challenges that he tries to overcome. Usually they get more and more difficult or progressively worse until finally, at the point at which his situation appears absolutely hopeless, he slays the dragon or he finds a solution and he conquers what needs to be conquered. He learns about himself. He's grown through all these setbacks. He's become a man and he's risen to the challenge and he's won the day. And then he goes home and he marries the princess and he's going to live happily ever after. So that's the hero's journey. Now I'm going to take you through the heroine's journey. And as I said, note down, you can pause the video because I think it's very interesting to see how our own life journey, especially at this time during perimenopause when we're really looking at where we're at and where we're going, fits into the heroine's journey. So at the beginning, when the heroine sets off into life, she also believes that there is just one path and she steps off often onto the hero's journey. That's what she's been taught. She's been brought up in a patriarchal system, and that's what her aspirations are of being a woman in the world. So she may be a little naive about this. She thinks she's either going to be looked after by the masculine or she's going to be considered one of them. But whatever happens, she's going to go out into the world. She's not going to be stuck in the old ways of the feminine like her mother or being disempowered like her mother. She's going to go off and make her way into the world. So off she goes. And she starts to identify with the power in the culture, which is usually a masculine type of power. So she may decide to study and become really good at her studies and to get the right job through that. Or she might finish her studies and then decide that she's going to be equal to men in business. She might run her own business or go into corporate, or she might become a doctor or a lawyer, or whatever she tries to do. She's trying to do this, whatever level she's at, whatever her life can offer her, she's trying to do this as an equal in the world of the masculine. So then she, like the hero, is going to come across different trials and tribulations, different challenges in her life. And often these challenges will be things that strengthen her. I'm getting stronger. I'm keeping to the path, even though it's hard and I can see the success in the future. Um, this is, I am going to get through these challenges and I'm going to get to where I want to go. It might be challenges in terms of her studies or financial challenges, or she's set up a business and she's got challenges there, but she's got her eye on the goal and she's going to make it. Okay. And eventually she gets the success that she has been after. She gets the job. She gets the Ivy League results. her business succeeds. Whatever it is, her sporty endeavors, she wins. Whatever it is, there is some sense of success in that world. And she sits with that success for a moment. But then when she really feels into it and she starts to look, what's the next part of my journey? She feels something is missing. It's not something in terms of her left brain linear scheduling out of her path. That she's done, and she now knows how to do it. No, it's something deeper. It's something in terms of her soul. There's a part of her that just feels a little dead. Dare she say it? And it's hard at this point because she's spent so long fighting, battling, working to succeed in this outer world, only to find herself feeling like this. And eventually, what she realizes as she carries on in this world that she's put so much value and effort into is that if she is going to continue in this world in the way that she is, she's going to have to betray something in her. She's going to have to lie about something within her or repress this thing in her. She's going to have to really function on a very shallow left brain way in order to succeed. And she's really good at it. In fact, she's a little bit worried because she realizes that she's spending a lot of time, most of her time, her go-to place is her mind. Or she might have realized that in order to survive in this world, she's a pleaser. She pleases all the people in the workplace or all the people that she's working with or all the people in the business world in order to fit in. She's what they want her to be. And deep down, she knows that's not her. What's happening? And so at one point in this journey, this usually becomes too much to bear. And this can be because she's realizing this herself. There's no way I can't get up in the morning. It's what used to be a motivating is now like a big lead weight, and I just can't do it. Or if she doesn't listen to herself, life can throw her a curveball. Something can happen, a crisis that forces her. It could be a crisis in her health or an accident, or it could be a relationship breakout up, or her business fails suddenly because something's happened to the stock market. Something happens that boom forces her to change her way of thinking and feeling and living. In a way, she's forced into the underworld. And here I will say, this is the real, for me, function of menopause on an emotional, mental, and spiritual level, at least, is that we don't need an accident, we don't need a breakup, we don't need a huge crisis. This is the doorway. Menopause is the doorway for us to go back down if we haven't been before, or to go down if we haven't been before, into the depths of ourself. But anyway, something happens in the woman's life, it could be menopause, and she finds herself forced to go inwards. And it can be very frightening. Spent her whole life in her head, her whole life accomplishing things, being, the person that she thought she was meant to be, successful. It doesn't mean anything. She's finding herself having to go within. So, what does she do when she goes within? Well, within is the feminine. This is where she finds that it can be scary, but there's much more in there. Maybe she gets help, a good therapist or a woman's circle or some kind of program like my program. But she starts to realize there is a roadmap and there is a whole inner world of feminine consciousness, not masculine. She's been out in the masculine world, feminine consciousness to explore. Maybe it starts with her starting to reflect on her mother's life, because that's what she left at the beginning of the journey. I don't want to be like my mum. I don't want to be disempowered like her or worried all the time or look, she's got. And now she comes back to thinking about her mother. even maybe her grandmother and her great grandmother. Maybe she sees the whole line. And she starts to notice that there are patterns that the women in her lineage and her mum kind of followed and disempowered themselves through beliefs that they had to be a certain way to be a woman. And she's noticing these. And she's feeling, her heart opens in a way for the feminine because she knows she doesn't want this root of the masculine, only the masculine. She knows she has to come back in and reclaim this other part of her or she'll be lopsided. And here she is, she sees her mother, who's lopsided the other way. In a way, she's in between. Her mother's lopsided the other way. She's never been able to do these things in the world. But over time and with the right guidance, she starts to reclaim some of the feminine attributes, not like her mother, in her own way. And she starts to really see this intuitive side of the feminine, this ability to know things, not in the left brain, but through the body, through the intuition, through these hunches. And she starts to really see the value in that, the value of not having to have a schedule all the time and be powerful and dominant, but to actually be in the present and react in the present from this deep, deep place of essential being. And she honors that. And little by little, she's starting to feel more whole. She's starting to value herself and life from a different perspective. And then when that's accomplished, naturally her psyche starts to show her that this dominant masculine energy that held the reins in life or holds the reins in business and in the intellect and in whatever it is that gave her that prestige before is actually one held the reins in her own life but also dominates her from within. That this either or isn't something just her confronted with that in the outer world, it's actually happening within her. There is an inner masculine, but because he's been shaped and formed over generations of women living through patriarchy, she's internalized a patriarch inside. And so now that she's reclaimed her feminine, she wants to write a book about something that she's realized, or she wants to do a beautiful project that includes this feminine energy. And she finds this inner part of her criticizing it, saying that it's not possible. Who does she think she is? That the feminine doesn't have a role in these type of things. So she's confronted with these two parts inside herself. And so then the work begins, still with her therapist or with the program she's in or with a coach that works on this type of thing. She starts to work on healing this internalized masculine dominance. She knows she has to because it's holding her back. It's destroying her. He's coming up in dreams. He's her fears. She can't bring this beautiful part of her that she spent so long discovering up into the world without dealing with him. And also, deep down, because she knows, because it's part of her psyche, that somewhere, once he gets out of the way, there's an ostracized, sacred, divine masculine that she can enter into partnership with and really dance the joy of creation. So it's at this point she starts to really ask herself some more questions, some deeper questions about her true sense of who she is and how she's going to move forward in the world as a sovereign woman. And these are great questions that you might want to ask yourself as you go through menopause and think about the future. So the first question is what serves your soul's purpose? What serves your soul's purpose? What does your soul need in order to express its purpose in the world? Our soul's purpose is often what we gain from the blood of our wound, by the way, by going through our challenges, going through this journey, facing those patterns of the denigrated feminine in our lineage, the disempowered woman, rewriting the story, and then we find that purpose, that energy, that vital life force. How can I release resentment towards my mother, who stayed in that disempowered way? By sewing the story together of my mother line and understanding my mother's part in that, in terms of the generation she was born into, the situation she was born into, the challenges that she was born into. I was very angry with her before I'd done that, but then I realized and I understood. I understood it more from her point of view. How can I stop blaming, either blaming or idolizing my father? So we either get into conflict with our fathers, and we sort of blame them for what they've done, or we idolize them, because little girls often were brought up to idolize their fathers. I was, even though my father was on the spectrum. And I did a lot of work sort of balancing that relationship, still loving him, but not entering into that dynamic. And not blaming him either, because again, understanding and forgiving the generations that our parents were brought up in and the challenges that they were faced with and the limitations. Limitations create style. So the limitations we had from our parents create the style that we move forward with. How can I find the courage to find my own darkness? And the darkness isn't what you think. When I found the darkest part of myself, it was in my motherline healing journey. And what I confronted was the shadow of my motherline, which on an individual level was represented by my great grandmother, who was a young tribal girl from Assam who had her children taken away when her English husband died. She was only 22, and my great grandmother was 6, I think. And she was taken away off the family tree, never mentioned again, and her children were taken into an orphanage for mixed race children. And I found her through research. And over that time, when I turned and faced the darkest part of my motherline, it was the shadow of my motherline, which was the neglected, denigrated dark goddess, represented on an individual level, as I said, by my great grandmother. And it's also a collective story. We all have the deepest part of our motherline that has been buried, because she would have never fitted into patriarchal society. And we're terrified of her. When I faced her at first, I was terrified of her because she was everything over generations we'd been taught to deny, or else we'd be in danger of life. And when I faced her in this lucid dream, I suddenly realized that she was a complete mirror image energetically of me. And then I realized she was my shadow, or the shadow of my line. And then I loved her. And she's the deepest, darkest part of us is usually our greatest, most empowering gift as well. So how do you mine the silver and gold within yourself? What is your journey to finding that gold? We turn the lead into gold. In my program, we follow these 7 alchemical stages that are the processes that the psyche is always going through to turn, the alchemists thought it was to turn lead into gold on a material level, but it's actually to transform the heavy, dark, deepest, darkest, terrifying parts of ourselves into light, bring them into the consciousness of light, and then they become our wisdom, our gift. So how are you going about that on your journey? How are you mining that? What does your soul need to be able to liberate itself from the darkness and bring the darkness into the light for that to become wisdom? How do you develop and maintain a positive relationship with the sacred and the masculine? This is huge work for women. I need to do a whole class on this. There's a journey to it. There's processes to it in terms of the feminine psyche. It's massive. Marion Woodman said it's through really working deeply with the feminine that we can aboard the inner masculine. We go through the deepest part of the feminine. We reclaim the feminine, and then naturally the psyche says, well, then now you can work with liberating the sacred masculine from the tyrant. So there's a whole process of that. I'm going to do a class on that. What is the voice of my woman of wisdom that will help me heal my lost sacred feminine? What is that voice? That's the voice of the wise woman, or the dark goddess, or the wise inner crone, that old, age-old, wisest of the wisest. She can guide us. She's a collective. She's a collective archetype that has also been killed as witches, denigrated as hags, left out of the party as a crone, but she's a part of all of us, and she is very, very wise, and she can help us to sew together the lost feminine. Sorry, that was my dog. So, and then eventually we get to the model of health, the ultimate health, which is the sacred inner union between the divine feminine and the sacred inner masculine. And it's the true initiation of becoming a sovereign woman. That's true maturity. We don't need to play it out in our relationships with the masculine in the world. We know that the sacred union is within. We are whole unto ourselves. Any partnerships that we go into will be two separate and whole beings who retain their separateness, even in unity. That's the rune of Gibo, the rune of partnership. It only touches, marriage or partnership only touches at one point, and the winds of heaven always dance between us because we're whole. And that's the journey of maturity. That's the real gift of really committing to the internal process at menopause. And it's the elixir. That sacred inner union is the elixir. From the ashes comes the phoenix, or you could say from the ashes is the elixir. The elixir means from the ashes. It's the alchemical process of taking the ashes and dissolving them. The ashes are what remain from the purification process of getting rid of what is not ours, getting rid of what we've been told since childhood and beyond that is the feminine, but really it's just the masculine telling us what it is. And what is left is that which will carry on, that which will persist, and those are the ashes. And we put them into the fluid, into the water, and that becomes the elixir. And the elixir is really the sacred inner union. So I wanted to end with a quote by the brilliant Marion Woodman. She says, "The only way I know to engage the masculine is by going deeper into the feminine." And menopause is really that journey of going deeper into the feminine. So lots of love. If you like my channel, please subscribe. It really helps me. And I'll be back for more soon. Lots of love.